Hey guys, welcome to another video. In this video we're going to go over the M3 rear touring bumper modification process. Real quick, I'm just going to show a few pictures and video clips of the very initial process of when we started on the bumper back in the beginning of the project. In the beginning of the project we needed to be able to get the bumper onto the car so that we could get the fenders lined up for the rear quarter panel fender replacement. And so with that process, we couldn't even get the bumper on because the rear hatch area of the touring cargo entry interferes with the center section of the M3 bumper. So in that case, we had to make an initial cut and cut out a small section just enough to allow us to get the bumper to bolt on. But once we did that, we were able to use the bumper as a mock-up for everything else, and I drove around like that for a good amount of while. And then the next process was what you're about to see. So I'm going to come in with an actual video and start the series where I'm actually starting the process of cutting out the center section of the stock touring bumper and grafting it into the M3 bumper along with the corner section areas to minimize the gap that occurs, and I'll explain all that when we start that process. Alright, so making another video. I don't have my GoPro, I only have my phone, so I'm going to take a few clips while I'm out here doing this. I'm trying to get started on making this rear M3 touring bumper, so I'm in the very early stages. I'm just going to show you what I got and kind of how I'm approaching it. So let's take a look. All right, so the first thing we have here is my bumper has PDC. And because my bumper has PDC, I need to move those two center sensors down. They will get in the way of the center cutout that I'm going to cut out from the touring bumper. A lot of people that I've seen, they move them down here in this bottom area. But on the stock touring M-Tech 2 bumper, which is the non-M bumper but the ZHP rear bumper, they actually put them in this middle section right below. So what I've done is I've taken some measurements and I'm moving them straight down the width of this green tape. So I've made sure that the measurements from the center lines are there straight down and that it's level across all the way across with the tape. And then I've drilled pilot holes so that it makes a mark in the foam bumper insert that is directly behind it. My guess is that the people that do their bumpers, they choose not to go this route because this route means you have to kind of drill through the bumper Kevlar support right here. So see this Kevlar support? You have to drill a hole through it and you have to drill through this foam so that you can make room for these PDC mount inserts. And it's easier just to go down here in this bottom area because you're right below this. Ultimately what's going to happen is I'm going to cut a square out, and that square will preserve this mount. These mounts are, what do you call it, plastic welded to the bumper. It's hard to see because it's bright outside. Hopefully you can see it right there. And so I'm going to preserve that plastic weld, even though it's not a problem. I could de-weld it if I wanted it to. But I'm going to cut a square out and I'm going to move that square down here. And then I have a plastic weld gun that will just stitch weld that into place. So at least I wanted to get my measurements on where I wanted these PDC sensors to go. And then I can come over here to this bumper, and I've made some measurements that I want this much to start off with, because remember, you want more material to start with. You don't want to cut off not enough and then the section that you cut out here is smaller than what's already cut out there. So I know that this section right here will more than overlap what's on the car currently, and that's fine. That's what I want. That way I could overlay this piece onto the M3 bumper and trace out the part that I want to cut out. I could trim out this section more and more until I get a good fit. So far this is what I have. I've got my lines set where I'm going to cut, So I'm going to go ahead and start cutting, and then I will come back with an update once I have that section cut out and see what it looks like. All right, done some cutting. It's hot out here. So I'm going to show you where I cut and what tool that I used. All right, so the tool that I used was just this oscillating saw. It's made, I'm using a blade for wood and metal. It's just what I had. I have other ones that I bought just in case I need them, but this seems to work really well. And as you can see, basically I follow my cut lines all the way across, so this piece is ready to come out. So I'm gonna get it out, and then I'll come back so you can see the actual piece. All right, so that was actually pretty quick. It just knocked right out. So as you can see, there's the cutout. It's a lot more than I need. And the center section, I went ahead and made sure to preserve these pieces right here because they are part of this inner structure. And I want to preserve that whole piece so that I can put this on the inside corner of the M3 bumper, because right now it doesn't actually have anything. This bumper had a support that went all the way across here that I had to cut out, and that's where it got its rigidity from. But now that I cut that out, this whole, I'm just basically had foam blocks in here to keep this up. But as you can see, it's very it's got no structure, no support. So that's what that piece is going to be there for, and I'll be able to cut a hole out in those plastic pieces so that I can fit the PDC sensor that goes in the corner right there. So here we have this section. So hopefully we'll be able to get this piece on here somehow. So once I get some more cut and fit and file down, we'll come back and see if we can get an update on what we're working with. All right, we're back. And what I've gone ahead and done is I made a small template out of an old magnet, used it to trace out the section I wanted to cut out, then brought it straight down and cut and marked that out. And I was able to cut out this piece, then this piece, and now this will fit right in there once I carve out this area for this piece to fit through. So this will fit right there, but reversed like this. So I'll go ahead and continue on that side, and once I get these in, I can plastic weld them into place, adding more structure, more support to this. And once those are in place, then I feel more comfortable with cutting out this piece right here. I'm gonna have to remove the whole rear bumper so that I can get these pieces in right here. But it's hard to work with the bumper off the car because it moves and it flexes and all that kind of stuff. So I'm trying to do as much as I can while the bumper is still on. I may cut these off right here so that I can get this piece on. And then once this is in, I may then pull the rear bumper off and plastic weld this into the corners. So not sure exactly what I'm going to do yet, but I'll know when I get there. All right, another update. What I've done is I've used a unibit on a drill, which was this guy. So I used this to drill out the hole and carve a cavity that can house this piece. And what I went ahead and did was, after I carved that cavity out, I started hitting the back of this Kevlar bumper support, and I said, well, let me just go ahead and drill through. And I was able to drill through it, and I was able to ream it out kind of like this with the unibit. And that allowed me to be able to pull through the PDC cable so that now I can plug in the sensor, get it mounted, and know that in the future when I take the bumper off, I'll have access to the top of this plug through this cutout right here. So yeah, that should be no problem. So I'm gonna go ahead and get this plastic welded in, and then we'll be back with an update. All right, it's hot. I'm done for the day. I've done as much as I can, but this is what we got so far. All right, so like I showed in the previous video, I made a template and I was able to cut out the PDC sensor and the surrounding section, and then cut out the area below it, slot it down, carved out the cavity right here for the sensor. Right there. Did the same thing on this side. Drilled holes through the Kevlar carrier. They're plugged in now. And so now at this point, they are plastic welded with just a few going around 3 of the sides. Once I get the rest of the pieces laid out here with that piece, then I'll see where I can, plastic weld the top area. And then once I do that, I can cut off all the little nubs, and then I can put in a ABS filler rod. And the ABS filler rod will go in between all these little seams right here to really give it more rigidity. With the plastic weld, you don't want to just like plastic weld with the staples and leave it. You probably could, but you really should be using a ABS plastic filler rod, which comes with your plastic weld kit, and you can buy them on Amazon. And so we'll get that filled in, and then once these are all filled in and everything's on, then you can sand everything down and fill it in with probably a 3M plastic filler. That's good for bumpers and has a flexible agent. It's a little bit better than Bondo. Bondo goes on metal, 3M plastic filler goes on plastic. So, all right, we will be back. Hopefully I'll have my GoPro. So hopefully I'll have my GoPro and I can get better footage and I don't have to keep doing this flip-flop thing with the camera. But all right, to the next one. All right, another update. So still working on the rear bumper trim area. I'm on day 2 now. And so I had cut out this section from the touring bumper. And I said that I wanted to preserve this inner structure here to go into the corners. But I don't want to cut the ends off so that I can fit this in here. So what I've done is I've used a combination of different tools, but I found what worked the best was using a Dremel. And on the Dremel, you can Dremel out all these little plastic tabs. It's a lot of them, so it probably took me like a good 15 minutes of drilling out all these plastic tabs. And once I got them all drilled out with the Dremel, or cut out, then that allows me to pop this off. I can save this piece and I can always plastic weld it back in, epoxy it in, whatever I want to do back to this once the bumper's off the car. So this allows me to keep this separate. I can clean it up too. But now I have this center section here that it's a lot easier to work with to lay into the M3 bumper and fit it in there, make my cuts where I want to see it, make my cuts here where I want to go. So it's just a little bit more flexibility with working with this piece. Once I get this piece cut, trimmed, and plastic welded in place on the M3 bumper, then I can take the whole bumper off, put it somewhere, stand it up straight where it's not flexing. Then I can get this piece plastic welded back into here to give it that rigidity that it needs. So I'm gonna work a little bit with this, clean it up, trim it down, and then I will be back with some more updates and to show how I'm working with this. All right, so I'm going to show a little bit of how I'm cutting part of the center section piece that I need to cut off. A lot of it is too long, too thick, so I measured with this piece of tape the width that I want. I laid it in a straight line, and I'm cutting along that line so that I can get it to fit better on the bumper here. So basically what I'm using is this Ryobi with the oscillating saw and the bit on here it's made from metal, so it'll cut through plastic. It's made for wood and metal, and it seems to be working well. I like this half moon shape rather than the little stick piece that they have normally for trim pieces on working on houses. So I think this works pretty well. the battery died right at the end. That is awesome. I love it. I was like, I know this battery's gonna die right when I'm about to finish. Look, right there. All right. So basically, when I cut, I cut right below the green tape so that I'm not cutting into the tape. And I'm doing it in the direct sunlight because the contrast makes it a lot easier to see where the tape ends and where the paint is. It doesn't exactly have to be perfect. The reason is because this is going to be used as a template to lay down on top of this, and it's going to have this overhang. And then wherever that overhang is, once I fit the rest of this, get all this in here, once this is all fit properly, I got to trim more of this out. Once I trim more of this out, I'll be able to fit this in more so that I can scoop this underneath the rear hatch area. And once I can get that in there and I fit it good, this is going to have an overhang. And this overhang, wherever that is, I'm going to draw that line. And then I can cut. And whatever amount I cut out here is what I'm going to butt up against this here so I can stitch weld it. And then we'll work it well, and then I can cut here too. So, but we'll get to that when we get to it. All right, so just wanted to come in here and show real quick before I finish cutting. Right now on the bumper, I am cutting no specific amount, just material away so that I can fit this piece. Because right now, this piece does not fit because it's sitting on top of this ledge here. So I need to cut this off lower so that this other piece can fit there. So I'm going to finish cutting here, and then I'll come back and show more. All right, little update here before I wrap it up for the day, but we'll turn it around here. So this is what I have now so far after some more cutting and trimming. I have the center section cut a little bit smaller, and then I trimmed the M3 bumper more so that this could fit in. So now it fits in nicely here, but I need to make my line cuts right here so that this can push forward, because right now, as you can see, it's being stopped right here by this ridge, and it's hitting the bumper right here on both sides. But what I've done is I've lined up this piece to go underneath like it's supposed to here. I also lined up, this centerpiece right here lines up with this latch hole right here because that's centered, and same thing for right there. And then I taped it in place so that it doesn't fall out, and then I can go ahead and make my marks on the sides, cut out that so that I can push the center section forward, and once it's forward more, then I can see clearly that I'm gonna have to cut more of this piece because it's overlapping on top of the PDC sensors. So I'll probably end up cutting this in half. We'll see as this gets closer how much we'll have to cut. I may end up cutting up to right here, but we'll see how it goes, and I'll come back with another update. All right, back in the garage. I was cutting and doing more work, and I was like, let me get some more video of the process. This is not a DIY step-by-step video, but at least somebody can see my thought process on how I approach this or do this. So if we turn right here, so basically what I have is I have this piece trimmed down a lot more, and I chose this just after test fitting repeatedly. Everybody's will be a little bit different depending on if you have PDC sensors or no PDC. I would say if you don't have PDC sensors, then it'll be a lot easier measurement wise. But because I have PDC sensors, and I'm also choosing not to go in the bottom area down here where a lot of people go, and I'm trying to be stubborn and stay up here, then it's causing me a little bit more work and measurements, because now that I have this here, now I have to be able to figure out where to get this measured so that it overhangs on here but doesn't cross over the PDC sensor. So at this point, I've done that. A lot of test fitting back and forth, lining it up, getting these corners lined up as best possible. And then once I had it lined up kind of like that on both sides, I taped it in place. And then when it was taped in place, you can see I have another line here, and I chose not to go with that line. Then I was able to trace along the bottom of this, and that gave me a new line right here. And that line goes right above, it's just coincidence, it goes right above this cut right here. And I'm gonna end up, once this piece is on, I'm gonna have to create a little filler piece right here, but I have lots of plastic, you know, from cutting out stuff. But I'm gonna have to create a little filler plate right here. But right now I'm just cutting through this top piece. So once I get that, it'll be a lot of sanding and test fitting and getting things to fit right till I can get this to slip fit in place. And once I can get this to slip fit in place, then I can start plastic welding it in place. And I'll show that process in a few more clips later. But I at least want to get this piece on for now, so I'll come back with another update. All right, so we have got this piece fitted in here. I had to do a lot more trimming on this side right here because the gap was too short. And if the gap was too short, it was causing the center to bow out. And if you pushed in the center, then it would pop out on the sides here. So I've trimmed out a little bit more. It's got a better friction fit, but slips in like it should. One of the things you have to be concerned about is that the M3 bumper is a different shape in a lot of different areas than the non-M touring bumper. Just because it's a bumper doesn't mean it's going to be the same shape. So the profile of the face is different on the M3 bumper versus the non-M. So although you can push it into place, it's not going to be perfect. So there will be a lot of body work once this is plastic welded in place to fill in all of the extra, you know, gaps and things like that. But for now, I have these lined up here, just kind of to hold it in place. And then when I'm ready, I can pop this piece in right here. As you can see, and I'll just pop that back out by hand. It's just pushing in right there. But yeah, so I'm gonna get started on plastic welding this in, and then once it's plastic welded in place with a bunch of those metal staples, then I'll be able to pull the bumper off and staple it from underneath to give it more rigidity and get to any other areas like right here, back here, that I can't get to right now while it's on the car. So we'll come back with some better pictures and video. All right, so it's nighttime now. We're gonna pick up where I left off and get back to this plastic welding. I just wanted to show a little bit of the process of doing the plastic welding. It's more like stitching, plastic stitching with metal staples. Let's take a look at the gear. So here are my staples. You can get them on Amazon. They come in a kit. I've already used quite a few. And so basically what I'm doing is I'm stitching the plastic together little by little all the way across. And of course there's some, you know, there's some deformity with it because the pieces aren't exactly a match, so you have to push and get everything pushed together. And then once it gets aligned, you start holding it in place and you start stitching together. That's why I kind of have these up here so that I can get to several at a time, because if you just do one, it'll pop out. But if you do a whole bunch together, it'll hold its form. And so that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna set the phone up and you can kind of see how it goes. I've already done the corners here to keep them in line. And then, let me see here. Good. So I'm going to take my plastic welder gun, and I'm going to take one of the staples, those little grooves, it just fits in there. And then I'm going to push this lip in and hold it. Make sure it's lined up. I'm gonna hold the button, it's gonna get red hot. See how it gets red hot? I let go midway through. You don't want to keep holding the trigger because then it'll go all the way through the plastic. So I kind of hold the trigger, get it red hot, and then right as I enter, I let go of the trigger so that it starts cooling off, because you want the plastic to cool. And then you pull it out. So then I'm going to keep holding it so I can keep tension on it. I'm going to get another one. Get this in here. There, and basically just kind of go along the way. Yeah, it hurts your fingers after you hold for so long, but the last thing you want to do is let go and have it pull all those stitches out. So I got to get all the way across here so it can all be one piece and there's no deformity. But it's getting there. Slowly but surely. Probably not good to breathe all this stuff in, but what can you do? All right, so I'm gonna finish the rest of this up and then we'll come back when it's done. All right, day 3. Let's see if we can get some more work done. I've already finished stapling the rest of the center section in as much as I can with the bumper on. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna show you, what I've gotten done so far. All right, so here we have the center section pretty much stapled in place with the hot staples. It's solid all the way across. So now, I need to remove the bumper so that I can put that rear inner structure in to give it more rigidity and support. But the one thing I was making sure to do was that, this gap is even all the way through, which it is. So that's good. It's a little uneven over here because the bumper corner is pushed out for that arch issue that I'm working on still. But for now, like if I were to push this all the way in, it would match that corner gap right there. But level wise, it's level all the way across, which worked out fine. So let's get a pull back here. Here we go. So I think we are pretty good. It's looking a little bit more complete than it was before, having a big cutout open area. Well, there's still a lot more work to do. So once the bumper's off, then I'm gonna need to do some more. So before I take the bumper off, I'm gonna take a cutoff wheel and I'm gonna cut off all these nubs all the way across. That's what I did for the PDC ones. These cut off pretty easily. You just slice them all off. And then once they're off, then you get a sander and you sand this edge all the way down. And then once it's sanded, then you can use ABS filler rods to fill in these seams all the way through. And once the seams are filled, then you can come in and sand it smooth with this. And then I have some 3M plastic. It's called Easy Sand or Easy Repair, something like that. But it's made for plastics, so I got that coming. It's like comes in panel bond type tubes, and it'll help smooth all this out. And then the last part is when I have the bumper off, figuring out how to adapt this raised edge from the stock touring bumper to the M3 one right here, so it's a step down of a lip. I may cut this off right here where the base is, and then use another silver, another M3 piece and plastic weld that on. I'm not sure yet. I may put a piece underneath here and then sand this corner down. So still some thinking to do on that, but as long as I got the center section on, there's a million different ways you could go about all the little finishing touches. Now, this is definitely not the only way or the best way to do this. I would consider this a level 1 M3 bumper modification. That's because I'm just trying to do it kind of as quickly as possible because I really don't have time. I'm not a full-fledged body shop, nor do I have money to send this off to a body shop like a lot of people do to get this done. So I would consider this a level 1, which is just getting that center section. Level 2 and level 3, there's 2 different other ways that other people are doing it, which I think are much better, cleaner ways, but they take a lot more time and a lot more money. And so this is what they do. What they do is they take the inside corner section from the touring bumper, they cut that out, and they graft that whole inner corner piece on top of this so that it fills in this corner right here, this corner gap. All right, but it doesn't just lay on top. It's a lot of, because the radiuses are different between the M3 and the non-M bumper. Once they lay it on top, they have to pie slice it and then spread it open, plastic weld it to the bumper, and then fill it in as well. So it's a lot more of that. They go all the way on the corner, all the way up into that corner edge up there. The other way to do it is that they will take on both corners right here, this corner and that corner, they will split the corner all the way down to right about here above the diffuser. They'll split it and they'll cut out about an inch wide section, and they will literally spread this leg and push the leg of the bumper out this way and push that leg that way. And then they put filler plates or brackets to connect them, and then they create filler pieces here. And then what that does is, if you take this bumper and you push it out, you can see this corner right here starts right here, but on the Touring, the corner's over here. So technically, the Touring chassis, the metal work is actually wider than an M3 in the back near the tail light. Okay, whereas on an M3 and a sedan, it tapers in. And so by cutting the bumper open and pushing it out, you bring this radius out and it will match under here. So that's definitely a nice way to do it too, but again, it takes a lot more work. But for now, I'm happy if I can just get this center section on. And then there's a final thing to decide on, which is a lot of guys will take these bumpers after they get this on, and they'll go one of two ways. One is they will just fill in all of this, sand it all down, and make it all one piece. And other guys like to conserve this bumper strip. As you can see, the bumper strip is plastic welded because it's going to become part of this. So one of the things you could do is you can cut this. I'm going to do a better measurement to get a nice clean radius. I'm going to make a template, and I'm going to do it here, and then I'm going to reverse flip it onto that side so that it's even. That was just a rough draft. And then once this is cut, you plastic weld this little piece right here, you know, do the finishing inside of the corner. You're going to have a little gap right here. That way this piece is still removable and it remains this matte plastic finish. I'm probably going to get this painted, either matte black or gloss black, just depends. I'm still not completely sure. I may just go all the way across. I'm not sure yet, but just explaining some of the different methods and routes you can go with this rear finishing trim piece. All right, I think I'm going to do a little bit more work, see if we can get this bumper squared away a little bit more, get it off, and then I'll come back for another update. All right. Hey, all right, we're back. Just want to give another update. I'm still using my cell phone instead of my GoPro just to keep it consistent, but I'm getting some more time to work on the rear bumper. For what I've done now is I've pulled the rear bumper off and I flipped it to the behind of the area so that I can look at the stitches from behind where I stitched it. And I went ahead and added additional staples on the rear just to be better safe than sorry. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip it around and we'll show you some of that, okay? So here's the rear bumper. Go ahead and flip this down. Put it on its back. All right, so for now, also what I've done is I've taken the center section that I showed earlier in the beginning of the videos. I trimmed it down on the sides so that it would fit in here. So before it had these long pieces that would go in the corners. Well, the M3 bumper already has its own that's already plastic welded into it. And I didn't really want to disturb that, so I left it alone. And so once this is all together and this is connected, it'll be nice and firm. I went ahead and repaired some pieces that were loose because of the center section that I cut out. So I repaired those, and that's adds some rigidity there. I went ahead and, let me see, zoom in here. I went ahead and added some more staples around the back of the PDC sensor area, just so that that doesn't push in from the front or the back. It's gonna be hard to see because I forgot that I put this piece in, I'm sorry. But you can kind of see right here in the bottom here, there are staples all the way across on the other side and this side. So I went ahead and stapled it all the way, added some more support there, Added some more staples there. So, and then I've hot glued this, not hot glued, but plastic welded with additional plastic rods so that it's nice and firm and it's in here. Use the original tabs. Yep. So that's in there now. So the final piece I'm going to try to work on today is, let's see if we can flip this around. Okay. So here, this is what it's looking like. So this is in there nice and good. The final piece I want to work on are these transition pieces right here. So on the touring bumper has this rise right here. And then it connects all the way across. Well, you can see I did get this lined up pretty good. So you can see this line lines up here. And it lines up over here. And I wasn't trying to do that. It wasn't necessary for what I'm trying to do. It just happened to work out that way, where this line right here kind of just intersected with the factory line. So that's good. That means that I made the right decision leaving this trim piece here and then lining the trim piece with the bumper instead of lining this piece with the bumper. So anyways, what I'm going to do is I'm going to work on today is trying to get this shaved down and then create a filler piece. So I'm probably going to shave it down right around here and then shave it down here and try to drop this piece down so that it's level with this. And once it's level with this, then I can hot staple or plastic weld this back in here, use some filler rods. It'll look really ugly. And then it's gonna get filled in with the 3M plastic Bondo all around, and then it'll be sanded and primed so you'll never be able to see it. So I'll work on that side. Same thing with this, I'm gonna work on that side. Then I'll do some test fitments, just trying to get it back on there. But I think that was, it's working out pretty well. It's definitely a learning curve with getting this done, but it feels good. All right, but I will be back. I will come with another update with showing the transition pieces, and we'll go from there. All right, just coming back to show some quick work. I'm repairing some of these bumper tabs. So one common issue on these M3 rear Kevlar bumper carriers is that these plastic tabs that are just plastic welded with plastic rivets, they break off, and they just break off on their own, or somebody taps you in the back and they snap, and then they stay attached to the bumper instead of this. But these are things, these pieces right here are help secure this to that. Otherwise, without that, this this is not attached to this, and it's just hanging by those little corner pieces right there when you push it on. So you definitely want these on to make it as solid as possible. These were missing. I had them, so I went ahead, instead of trying to plastic weld it to the Kevlar again or epoxy it, went ahead and just used self-tapper screws that are about 3/4 of an inch long right there, and just zipped them on through. I found the original holes, lined them up, and then the other ones, which were all still good, I went ahead and left 2 rivets intact and then put 2 bolts, 2 screws in, just to secure them all. And then another thing that does is it also secures this foam piece a little bit more inside the carrier. So gonna get back to work here, and I'll be back with some more updates. All right, hopefully this thing is recording. Let me check. Yes, it's recording. All right, I just spent 15 minutes talking to nothing because I took a picture instead of a video. So I'm gonna explain, I wanna go a little bit further with this wagon bumper, I think, because of some weird gaps on the corners that I thought I was gonna be okay with, but I'm not sure I like it now, and I'll show you what I'm talking about. So first thing on the wagon bumper is you got this raised area here on a wagon, because on a wagon bumper, the wagon bumper is actually wider on the corner, pushes out more, because the profile is a little bit different here between coupe and sedan and wagon. So when you put an M3 bumper on here, the M3 bumper is wider at the fenders, but then the corners are slimmer. So this corner gets sucked in and it causes this weird gap right here. You can kind of see it right there. So it's got a gap and it's also the wrong shape. So it just kind of looks funky. You can kind of see it right there. And so having this right here would close that gap up a little bit better. You can see how far the gap comes down. And I think what a lot of guys do is they either chop this off and then graft in a flat piece to match up with this, or they pull this piece up and they stitch it to this and they fill it in with plastic Bondo, sand it down and paint it and call it done. And I may still do that, but I want to try something a little bit different. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here, and here is the wagon bumper, and here's the corner. And I know this corner will match up to the center section that I cut out because it's right there. So I'm going to cut this piece out here, get a lot more material. It's because I know it overlaps on the M3 bumper. I'm going to cut it all the way through. And you can actually see over here, I did it on this side already as a test. So I went ahead and cut this corner out. I just drew a line. I got more material than I needed, knowing that it's going to overlap. Went all the way up, and I just kind of cut into the middle of this corner right here. So then, here we are. We have this piece. This is the piece that I cut out. It was too long by about this much. So I cut that much out, stapled it together, top and bottom. So it's on there, it's not going anywhere. And then, so I have a whole solid piece here. But then because this is a narrow bumper, it doesn't fit the radius of the leg that comes out. So what I'm doing is I'm going to stick this here. See if I can get this in here. All right, so we'll get this piece kind of lined up there. It's not going to line up perfect because it's sitting on top of the bumper, but as long as I can get this line here lined up, and then I can push the bumper in more to go underneath here. But as you can see, this fills in that gap much better. It's obviously going to drop down by about 1 millimeter because it's sitting on top of the bumper, but it still definitely closes the gap better. And as you can see here, you can actually push this in now because what I did was I cut these pie slices in here like this. And because I cut these pie slices, now I can actually get a bend in the plastic to fit that radius. Like that. And once I can fit this in there, and put this in there over there, it just kind of fits in there. So I'll probably staple it in a few places just to hold it in a few key areas. And then once everything is held in place and it's got the right shape, I'm going to draw a line based on this, cut the bumper on that line so that this piece will fit onto that. And hopefully I don't mess it up, but that's what I'm going to try to do. All right, I'll be back with another update. All right, we are back. What I've done now is I've plastic welded a few staples into the corner piece on top of the M3 bumper, just so that it'll hold its shape. There's no way I can hold it in place and mark this line, especially because there's some places that are a little tight. So I held it in place, put some hot staples in it so it'll hold its shape, and this bumper goes in too. And then once I got here, it's kind of like how people use those Cleco pins, but I don't have those, so I'm just use staples. And I left the pegs on so I can heat them back up and pull them out, and it shouldn't be too bad. So now this piece is in. I like my gap, at least not the gap so much, but how it lines up with this. I don't want it to be too far out or too far in. And then I wanted this to hold its shape, its radius shape, so it stays in there. This is in, and then I pulled this piece down earlier and I drew the line around that, and I went around the edge here, so that now I can pull this piece off, I can make my cut, and then come back in and try to graft this piece back in. And we will see how that works out. It's either gonna be really bad or it'll be okay. So let's give this a shot. All right, well, there is no going back. I have cut that corner out. You can see, here's the piece that I just cut out. It came out pretty easily. The cut was pretty easy, and then it was just held in by some of the plastic weld areas that it goes to the bumper bracket. So once I get this new piece in, which one of the plastic welds lines up, which will be good, I'll get this plastic welded in to the original piece. But as you can see, I'll be able to get this piece in here, set that in, get that radius, and there we go. Yeah, hopefully it'll work. I'll get an update with it all stuck back together, and then there's the task of doing the same thing to the other side. Oh. All right, we'll be back. All right, gonna do 2 more videos on this for this bumper thing today. Bumper is off right now, and I just finished grafting on the inside corner lip, so I'm going to show you that. All right, so here we go. So here we have this inside corner lip grafted on. There's a section gap right here, which is okay because it's stitched together, and then I have ABS plastic filler rods I'm going to fill in here, and then also all of this will get filled in with the 2-part epoxy from 3M. But that actually went on pretty, I won't say it was easy, it was just more tedious. But I like how I was able to follow this curve of the M3 bumper. And then I was able to cut into this piece right here. And that worked out well. Once this gets all filled in and sanded, it'll look really good. Yep. So I'll go ahead and, oh yeah, another thing is I cut out more of the Kevlar bar so I could have better access to those PDC sensors. All right, so I'm going to get this thing put on so you can see the fitment of it, and I'll show you a comparison of this corner versus a corner that's not completed. And then you'll be able to see the difference in that gap. All right, got the rear bumper on. It's not completely bolted on all the way with the bolts, but just to show this is all I need, it's fine. All right, so we'll start off with this side, and you can see it can go on more, but there's that god-awful gap, and this corner here just overlaps very weird. We'll come over here, and we have this gap filled up much nicer now. So I'm thinking that was good effort and worth it. So I'm done for today, and hopefully I get some more time tomorrow. I've already went ahead and cut out the piece right here for the other corner, so I just need to do the same thing all over again, and hopefully I can remember how I did it. But all right, we'll be back tomorrow. All right, another update, another day. I finished the other side, and I've moved on to the passenger side, and what we have here is I've just finished cutting out this corner piece after laying over the new piece. So I showed a lot of it yesterday. I'm just giving a little update here, but I'm not going to actually show all the steps since I showed it in the other one. But I'll come back with more progress after I get the other one fitted on so you can see, and then hopefully I'll get the final clip, which is both corners together mounted on the car. So stay tuned. It's looking good so far. All right, I'm going to show a little bit of the process of how I hot staple this. I don't think I've actually shown how I do it. So basically what this does is it turns red hot. I did show that in an earlier video. And then it melts into the plastic, and you're supposed to let off the trigger until it cools off before you can take it off, otherwise it'll just pull right out. And then another technique they say you're supposed to use is you're supposed to twist it a little bit so that it goes in. And what I like to do is I put it in, and then I blow it with this, what do you call it? It's an air blower, that's all it is. And it blows cold air onto the melted plastic, and it actually causes the plastic to re-liquefy and move into little crevices as it melts, which means it goes over these little tiny pieces right here, making sure it won't come back out. So yeah, that's my process. I'll go all the way around, and then once it's off, once it's all on there, I'll be able to cut off all these pegs just like I did the other side, sand it down. Then on both sides I'm going to go through and fill in any gaps with plastic ABS filler rod. This corner right here I'll reinforce on the back side so that it doesn't lift up. But yeah, it's going pretty well. It's going a lot better than I thought it was going to, which is awesome. But I'll be back with another update. All right, it's on. So we're back another day working on this bumper. Hopefully this will be one of the last days that I work on. I'm really trying to get it done. so that I can prep it and get it ready for, you know, at least put on the car and be presentable. I want to spray it with some Orient Blue paint. But before doing that, I need to do a lot of finishing work. But the hard part is done. So this is what we've done. So I've got the bumper here, it's off the car. I finished all the stapling, center section, PDC sensors, both inside corners, as you saw in the previous video clips. That's, you know, it's a process, but it's tedious. So we'll start with this corner here. I'm really loving how the shape came out. I was very happy with that. There is a bit of a gap right here, which is fine. I think I cut a little bit too much right there because I definitely don't have that over here. That's okay, it's still stapled together fine. And then I'm gonna put a backing back here so that when I go do the two-part epoxy, it will fill this in, add its rigidity back. But it's all in the prep work. You gotta make sure everything's clean and nice and rough for everything to have proper adhesion. So, but again, what we got here is this piece fit really nice. I was super happy with how this came out, very amazed. We got the relief cuts that I cut so that it would follow the contour of the M3 flare, because originally the stock touring bumper doesn't come out this wide, it goes more straight. So you got to cut these lines here so that it'll open, but it still has the same shape and profile, which was nice, so it matched up. I've stapled in between each cut to make sure that it's nice and rigid again. I've stapled the outer skin to the bumper bracket, because originally the bumper bracket is plastic welded to the lip of the outer skin, but the plastic weld marks here are on a different position than on the M3 skin. So it's, instead of meeting up, it sits on top, which is fine. I stapled them, hot glued, you know, plastic welded them, so everything's nice and tight. I filled in this gap right here with ABS plastic filler rod. So that will smooth out nicely when I go to do the finishing work. We got the center section. This came out nice, it all came together, and I like how it's all one piece. If I were to do this again in the future, I would know next time not to cut right here, just cut out the center section and the corners as one solid piece and graft it all together. That will be the way to go. The only thing that would have to be done differently is that both sides had to be shortened by about an inch. Why? I don't know, but it probably has to do with the profile of the bumper and the shape and all that. But yeah, over here again we have the relief cuts that are plastic welded or stapled, and then I have this. There was a larger gap over here when I cut in, but it still was level, which was nice. And I went ahead and filled that in with ABS plastic rod, filler rod, so that will sand down nicely. One thing I had to do is I had to trim this bumper, because this bumper actually came out more here, whereas the M3 bumper has a smaller profile here, and that's because of the this piece here, and the guard that goes right here comes out a lot wider, and so this has to be shallower. And so I had to shave that down so that it had the nice contour and matched up with the M3 bumper. So that came out nice. It actually looks like very similar shape. Same thing over here. All right, so the next thing I'm going to do, this bumper structurally is good. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start sanding. I want to get everything, you know, sanded, roughed up, but sanded and level. And then I'm going to, once I do that, I'm going to use a combination of my sanding tool here, and then I have an orbital sander I'm going to use with some sanding discs. And then once I get everything sanded, I'm going to take it outside, wash it down really good, hose it down, get all the dirt and debris out, let it dry in the sun, throw some air on it to air it out and get all the dust and particles out. You get it back in here so I can start prepping it for the two-part epoxy. So that'll be my next video or update, is when I do the epoxy. Hopefully it'll be later today, but all right, to the next one. All right, checking the phone again. It's been probably about 2 weeks since my last video on the bumper, and the last part of that said I'm going to finish the epoxying today. That didn't happen. It's been like 2 weeks. A lot of stuff has transpired. So I've finally got some time on this one day to get some work on this rear bumper. So let's go ahead and get started. So last thing I did was I used a random orbital sander, and I sanded the whole thing with, I think, 180 grit sandpaper. And the next thing I did was I washed it with soap and water, degreased it outside and let it dry. And then now what I'm doing is I'm putting tape over the seams, over a lot of the seams that I'm going to be working with. I can't do all of them, but I'm putting tape over the seams I know I have access to from behind. And all I'm doing that for is so that I'm going to use panel bond. And panel bond is going to go on the back for a structural adhesive to fill in the large gaps. And then this is just to keep it from seeping out through the front. So I'll do panel bond in the back. And then once I finish panel bonding, you know, areas like the side here or this corner that had the large gap, and mainly right across here, to make sure this is strong and bonded. Once that's cured, then I'm going to take the tape off, and then I can go ahead and start working with the 3M 2-part sandable epoxy that's going to fill in all these gaps from a cosmetic standpoint. So once I start getting all that put together, I will come back with another update and show the epoxy from the back, and then also for the other 2-part epoxy from the front. All right, so I had to go get a panel bond gun, which is a dual cartridge applicator. I forgot I didn't have one, so I had to go grab one from a friend. I was able to use the last little bit of my 3M panel bond that I had saved from my carbon fiber roof that I did a couple years ago. It was still good, still mixed fine. So let's go ahead and show you what I did right now. All right, so what I did was I took this guy right here. This is my 3M panel bond dual mix applicator. Let me see here. So I used that. It's empty now. I've used it all. And what I did was, before, I put tape on the other side to prevent seepage from the back side. And then now I went through, and I'm not worried about how pretty it looks because nobody's going to see this. This is not an outside part of the car. But what I did was I generously and liberally applied throughout the hole where any seam was that I stitched together. The vertical seam right here, all the way throughout, all the way around the PDC sensor bases, and went through here, all the way up through here. And then I went and filled that gap in from underneath. So there's 2 large gaps that you can see from up here. I filled that in. And then I went ahead and I had to do a repair on my bumper with the leg. So since I stitched it vertically, I needed to panel bond and smear that in. So after I put a bead on, then I used a credit card and my finger, and I just smeared it wherever I could to make sure that it gets into the cracks, gets some tooth, and really get in there. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to let that cure. So it's already starting to harden up, but it takes generally about 24 hours to be completely cured. I think, let me check here. So it's got a 90-minute work time, which means for 90 minutes it's still pliable, but it's a little hot, so that time gets shortened significantly. So it's I'll probably wait a good 3 hours. And once that 3 hours is up, then I'll be able to come back here, take off the tape, and start applying this guy right here. So this is 3M Easy Sand Multi-Purpose Repair. So it's very similar to panel bond in the fact that it's a 2-part epoxy. Uses the same applicator gun. This one has a 5-minute work time, so it actually hardens really quick. You don't get the generous work time like you do with panel bond. It actually can be painted in 30 minutes apparently, but that's not what I'm going to be doing. So I'm going to use that, and I'm going to come in here and do one corner at a time. And just come in here and do this corner. Fill in every gap that I can. And then once it is smeared in and as smooth as I can get it while still being a little bit lumpy, then I'll let it cure. Then I'll come back and sand it in line with this, with the orbital sander. I'll do the same thing with that when I take the tape off of that piece and this corner and that vertical area. So quite a bit of work to do on that. Yeah, I think at this point I'm done with the bumper. After that, I can go ahead and, you know, throw a coat of blue paint. If I get some time, I'll come back and do an update video and show the bumper sprayed blue. It's gonna get, the whole car's gonna get painted hopefully next year. But I'd like to have the car close to one color from 20 feet away. That'd be nice. All right, so I'll be back with another update, but if not, this should be the last of the video, and hope you enjoyed this one. All right, guys, quick update. I know the last video I said was gonna be the last update, but this one I went ahead and was able to get the 3M 2-part easy sandable epoxy laid out. It has a 5-minute work time, so I had to do it in sections, but I also didn't want to waste my whole bottle when I burned off one section. So I worked pretty quickly. I did the PDC sensors, the seam of the molding that I'm molding all in one piece. It's no longer going to be removable. It'll get sanded, primed, and painted, the whole bumper all one color, much like all of BMW's newer wagons, like E60s and above. So I filled in all the seams, and I tried to level it out. I didn't want to push. I pushed deep, but I didn't want to push too deep because I wanted to build it up and then let it cure, which it is cured. And that way I can sand it all down. Went ahead and did the corner. Got the corners there. The seam part that I did right here. Did the seam here. And basically all this will get filled in when we do a second coat, maybe some high build primer on the whole thing, and everything gets sanded and leveled. But I did, this seam right here, I did make sure to push in as much material so that it would fill in the cavity so there wouldn't be any gaps. All right, and I'm back here. On the bottom was the panel bond underneath, and so this was sitting on top. I'll do another coat here, and then when we go to fine tune and refinish this whole bumper later, everything will be smoothed out and level, which is good. I just wanted to make sure that I got a structural adhesive in here to cover up all of those staples so that they don't rust out while I drive the car for a year. So at this point, it's cured. I'm going to get started on sanding. Hopefully that doesn't take me but maybe 45 minutes to an hour. And then once it's sanded, wash it off, clean it up. Maybe I can get a coat of primer and a coat of paint on it just so that I can throw it back on the car. But I will be back with another update for that. Thank you. All right, a lot of sanding. Still not perfect, but the goal is not to get it perfect today. The goal is to get most of the cracks and gaps filled in with a good epoxy filler so that the steel staples do not rust out over the year while I'm gone or while I'm driving. So when this was ready to go to the body shop, of course my paint and body guy is going to hate me, but you know, he's going to have a lot of work for him to really work his magic to get everything nice and level and smooth. I would say so far though, the 3M epoxy easy sand is pretty easy to sand. Really with the orbital sander, the random orbital sander, not that Ryobi one. I learned the hard way that Ryobi one will just eat through plastic super fast. So this one from Harbor Freight works much better, much more softer. So the next thing is now I've gone around and I've felt most of the high spots that I can get rid of with the time constraints that I have. I'm going to take it out to the yard, wash it off, get all the dust and paint and stuff off of it, washed off and dried. so that I can put a nice high build primer on it and spray it with just a couple coats of Orient Blue so I can get this thing put back onto the car. So when I'm at that point, I will come back and show you. All right, so I just finished rinsing off everything. What I did was, while I had the water on it, I went ahead and used 320 sandpaper and did a wet sand to, smooth it out a little bit more, and it helped out a lot. Right now, everything's just drying, and my paint guy will have to definitely work his magic on this, but I think I've taken it as far as I can go with my skills. I am not a body person. But overall, I mean, considering where it came from, it's looking a lot more one piece than grafted on like it was before. And this center section right here looks a lot better molded in as one piece. So yeah, that is looking pretty good. Hopefully we can get this thing dried out, get some primer on it, and get some paint. We'll be back. All right, definitely not pretty, but I got a coat of primer on there, and then I went ahead and wet sanded it a little bit too, so to take some of that grit off. So I'm just letting it dry currently, and then wait a few more minutes so I can throw a base coat on here. But it is pretty cool seeing this bumper come together and not look so cut up, whereas when it was exposed with all the staples, it looked like a Frankenstein bumper. Still not the prettiest thing, but I am proud of it, and it's a lot of work, and it's all coming together. At least it'll have a color that's similar to the car, and then that'll allow me to hold off on, waiting until I can get the car refinished and painted. I don't want to ride around with unpainted parts or primered parts, so at least I can get something out of it. So anyways, let me finish this process up, get a base coat on there, and let's see how it looks. We'll be back. Okay, here we go. Base coat is on. I would say that matches pretty good to that. That's a little dirty, dusty, but the color is pretty spot on. I would say that is good enough just to drive on. Take a look at it from here. With the paint on, you can really see all the imperfections, the high spots and the low spots, but hopefully all that stuff will get taken away with the final part of the finishing. So anyways, I think that concludes this. When I get some more time, I'll get the bumper crash bar installed back on this, and I'll get this back on the car, see how it looks. Maybe one day I'll get some time to do the side skirts, the quarter panels, and that front bumper, and the mirrors. All right, till next time. All right, last clip for tonight. The bumper's base coat is on. I painted the PDC sensors and the little tow hook. And when I say paint, I just mean paint to get it to be the same color as the car. I'm not painting to paint good, so don't laugh. I did. So anyways, we're gonna take a look at this, and I put the bumper on, and besides, obviously being able to see the imperfections that need to be refinished, I would say it looks pretty good.